All right, thank you very much, and I must say it's an absolute pleasure to be here in Quebec City again. I was here at the very first conference, and it's great to see it grow in status and it really getting the recognition it deserves within the mining industry. So today, here to discuss the Greenbay Copper Gold Project in Newfoundland, and it is probably one of the most rapid growing, most successful stories in all of Canadian mining that we've seen in the last few years, and it has really come from a point of nowhere to a place where we are a serious copper deposit about to be developed in the Tier 1 jurisdiction. Just an overview of the investment summary. We've got a really high grade resource, about 80 million tonnes at 2.2% copper equivalent. It's in a great province, obviously Newfoundland, and it's really good to see that there are a number of Newfoundland representatives here today as well, so we'll see a few more presentations from the island, but great mining jurisdiction to work in. We have a lot of infrastructure. This has already been a mine, and it's going to be a lot bigger mine, so we do have a really big head start in terms of infrastructure. $250 million has been invested into the project already, and all that capital will be recycled. We have immense, just absolutely immense exploration upside with the district scale potential, which we'll touch on, a strong team, and we also are in a very good financial position. So, you know, really great to be here today to really present that story. I thought I'd just start out with some comments on the macro copper landscape. And, you know, we're seeing the world really change in the last 6 months. We're seeing copper prices at near record highs. I think it was $6.32 a pound today. So, you know, like you had have said that a few years ago and we would have been, think we were dreaming. What it's being driven by is a whole heap of macro factors from demand and supply. So the demand is rapidly growing. We're all aware of that. We've all heard of the green revolution, the data centers. I've even seen Robert Friedland talk about copper being a war metal, unfortunately. I'd much rather it be a green metal and focus on the good that it can do. But it is used in military applications. And also just rebuilding the electrical infrastructure of North America, it's really important. There's going to be a lot of copper demand. We've seen the Canadian government come out recently with some pretty big targets. And that demand's only going to grow with time. We know that. But what we're seeing on the supply side is a very, very different story. We're seeing the grade of deposits decline. You know, some of those big porphyries in South America, which have really been the backbone of copper production, are getting lower grade. They're getting deeper, a lot more capital intensive to transition from open pit into underground. And we're seeing the development timeframes of those big deposits really blow out. You know, so we've got this short-term demand that's starting to skyrocket, but there's really not a lot of new supply coming on board. The jurisdictions that we're getting the copper from are becoming more and more risky. We've seen the issues in South America. We've seen the issues well documented from places like the Democratic Republic of Congo. And exploration discoveries are not being made at the rate that they were historically. So all of this is leading to a perfect storm for copper. And we expect the copper price to be very robust moving forward. And that puts Greenbay in a really unique position to take advantage of that because we are a near-term producer. There's one thing I really want you guys to take away from this presentation, and it's what really differentiates our project. And I think I can sum it up with world-class copper intersections. It's high grade, it's a large-scale VMS system. Copper and gold, it's not a zinc ore body pretending to be a copper ore body, it's genuinely copper and gold. Multiple zones, open in all directions, and as I mentioned before, a lot of growth potential. We have two main styles of mineralisation there. One is a massive upper sulphide that you can see on the screen now, and you look at some of those grades and you don't see those sort of grades in any deposit very frequently. 10.7 metres at 12.2% copper equivalent, 26 metres at 8%, 10 metres at 10% copper equivalent, for example, from that massive sulphide zone. So it is world-class intersections. Beneath that massive sulphide zone, we have a broad zone of footwall stringers, and they're chalcopyrite veins that bulk out, amenable to bulk scale mining. And you can see some of the incredible thicknesses there that average out anywhere between 1.5 as high as 3 and 4% copper, but 117 metres at 2.1% true thickness, 63 metres at 2.2, and so on and so forth. So there is a lot of thick copper there, amenable to bulk scale mining. But one of the things since we've acquired this asset is that as we go down plunge, these two styles of mineralisation are converging, and it's what we call the core zone. And you're going straight from massive sulfides into the broad stringer zone underneath, and you're getting these truly spectacular world-class hits, the 43.6 metres at 7.6% copper equivalent. The deepest hole that we've ever drilled into this system, 49 metres at 6.1% copper equivalent. So, you do not see hits like that very often, and that is really pointing to a really high-grade, large-scale copper mine when we get this back off the ground and up and operating. One of the other things that people really don't appreciate is how much copper we actually currently have in our resource. We have a contained global copper resource of 1.4 million tonnes, and when you compare it to a lot of well-known deposits, it's actually significantly higher than that. And one of the benchmarks that we get comped against in North America is Foran, and that's obviously been taken out recently for $3.6 billion. We have more than twice the amount of copper in our resource than what Foran has. So, it's amazing when you think about it. For the investment community, if they do want copper exposure, this is one of the rare opportunities to get into a very large-scale project in the hands of a junior. From a company register perspective, we're very well backed. So our largest shareholders out of London are BlackRock. We also have numerous other institutional shareholders, about 72% institutional shareholders on the register. And we are in a very good financial position. We currently have about $205 million Canadian in the bank. Our market capitalisation is about the $1.6 billion mark, and some really good coverage from both North American and Australian banks. We are listed on both the ASX and the TSX, so there's opportunities for our Canadian shareholders to participate locally. So just a little bit on Newfoundland. As I mentioned before, a great jurisdiction. We've had a lot of government support, a lot of community support, and really it's the only way to get mining projects up and going these days. And to demonstrate the level of community and government support, we've already been released from our environmental assessment to start constructing this project. So that approval happened in 45 days, which is just unheard of in Canada. And that really does speak to the support from both the government and the local community. It's a great province in terms of the infrastructure. We have power infrastructure. It's well serviced by air. It's well serviced with hydropower, which will be a key platform for us moving forward. Great operating workforce. I'm sure all you Canadians know that most of Newfoundland's actually outside of Newfoundland. Those that have been in Alberta tell me that there's Newfoundlanders everywhere and they all want to come home. So we have access to a very, very skilled workforce. And also having that brownfield site means that there's already a lot of infrastructure in place. The project itself, we own it 100%, have a large land package, about 346 square kilometres, and it's an established asset base. It is really well set up. As I said before, this is already a mine. We can already drive a truck 900 metres below the surface, and what that means is that we can get this thing back into production at a much larger scale in a very short time frame. We've invested very heavily in the drill bit. That's the way we go about things. We've done nearly 200,000 metres of drilling in the last 2.5 years. So, we haven't been shy about growing this, and we've taken the resource from 40 million tonnes at acquisition up to 80 million tonnes in just 2.5 years. So it's been quite big, rapid growth for us. You can see here some of the infrastructure that we have on site. We've got a port that's only 6 kilometres away, which means getting this concentrate to market is very easy for us. We've got the hydropower line literally running next to our camp. So we don't have to build transmission lines, and we've got everything we need. So this is the type of infrastructure that's already in place, and we will be able to recycle a lot of this capital. In terms of how we're going to continue to grow this company, there's 3 really key strategic directions that we're operating in concurrently. And one is to continue growing that resource. It's still open. it's high grade, and it's rapidly growing beyond that 80 million tonnes where it's sitting at the moment. The development de-risking, what that's about is really putting the economics around it, and I'll take you through the progress on our studies shortly. And then there's the district exploration as well, because what we know as geologists is VMSs, these type of deposits, they're not orphans, they always occur in clusters. And we expect to discover other deposits around the main Ming deposit in Newfoundland. So what we've got here is basically a long section of the mine, and you can get a sense for the scale of this deposit. The down plunge extent now is 3 kilometres, and that's far bigger than your typical VMS deposit. It's far bigger than a normal VMS. This is rapidly approaching 100 million tonnes produced and combined with our resource. And it's still open. The deepest hole we have into this system is 49 metres at 6.1% copper equivalent. So we haven't found the bottom of it. We're finding more lodes parallel to this. And we think that, over time, this is just going to grow and continue to grow into an incredible deposit for us. What's really amazing is we've got a high-grade core. And what we've discovered with the drilling that we've done in the last 2 years is the highest grade part of this ore body that's ever been known about, where these zones converge. And what that's resulted in is a subset of our 80 million tonne resource. It's about 20 million tonnes at 4% copper equivalent. So think about that. There's not many operations around at even 2% copper equivalent. To say you're talking 4% copper equivalent, they're just rare, and they're rare in jurisdictions like Newfoundland and Labrador. As I mentioned before, we've had the rapid resource growth, but what's been really pleasing to see is the growth hasn't been just about inferred resources. We have actually been converting at the same time. We actually have 8 rigs on site at the moment, so we're rapidly converting that resource as well. One of the key milestones that we're working towards is our economic study, and the team that we've got working on this, the guys and girls in both Newfoundland and Toronto, are doing a fantastic job, and we're on track to put that out in July. We were originally guiding June, but we're going to put it out in July because we're finding more and more of that high-grade material, and we really want to incorporate that into the study. So, the economics are looking really good on that, very positive. All the MEP test work's done. We've got a who's who of the mining industry working on that as consultants for us. And in due course, that study will come out. And what will be accompanying that also is a resource update. And based on the drill holes that we've seen, I'd be expecting the grade to increase as well as the tonnes in the resource. So everything's going along pretty well. We've also got our permits in place to start early works prior to construction. And that tells you how confident we are that this will work. We will be starting early works within the next few months and getting that underway. So very exciting times. So watch out for this study, likely to be released in July. And then just finally, to wrap it up, the greenfields exploration potential. As I mentioned before, we know there's multiple deposits in this district. We know that because there's 8 historic mines on our leases. So that's 8 historic producing VMSs. We know that the conditions that form one VMS, you're likely to get more VMS deposits. And what we're doing now is assembling the ground package and really hammering the regional exploration. Currently have 2 rigs on surface, and that will likely increase to 3 later on. We've been doing extensive geophysics, and this part of the world really has missed out on a lot of the exploration that has been seen in the Abitibi and other parts of Canada. And using those modern techniques, it's amazing what type of targets that we're finding on the ground there. So we're very confident that in time, with systematic exploration, we will make another discovery in this district. So look, just to wrap this up, this next couple of years is going to be really pivotal to us. The first few years were all about building confidence, building the scale of the deposit, proving the world-class credentials of what we've got. Now, what it's about is wrapping the economics around it. I think when people see the NPVs and the scale potential of this deposit, it will surprise quite a few people because of the positive nature of it. That will come out in our studies. There will be a lot of drill results coming out in the next few weeks and months leading up to the end of the year. And where we'll be then is we'll be finally putting out a feasibility study towards the end of this year or early into next year, and that will be accompanying our final investment decision, which we're very confident will happen. So yeah, look, thank you for the time and attention for the presentation. Myself and Jesse Lewernstein will be around the conference, and if there's any further questions, please track us down and ask. But thank you very much.